All right, John. Well, welcome back.
Yeah, good to be here as always.
Yeah. So we're gonna work through a little bit of solar. I always want to say solar, but I think it's solar. Not sure. What do you usually
I've
call
always heard solar, but
it? Yeah. So maybe so, maybe so. That's one thing. You know, I'm gonna mention this in the other talk, but listening to like John Schofield and folks who were like in the Miles Davis band and like with Gary Burton, you know, when I heard him mentioning choral, you know, the way he pronounces it, that's kind of important to me for some reason. It's like, okay, he knew Gary Burton personally. I don't know who wrote choral, but I know he played that too.
Yeah.
I can't remember who wrote it, but anyway, let's get into solar a little bit. Solar, yeah, and talk it through. So one thing I try to train myself on this as well as just talking to all my students is look at the upper left-hand corner. Is it, you know, it's medium swing. Sometimes it's played pretty fast. 165 is actually, I would say, fairly up tempo.
Yeah, that reasonably brisk tempo.
Yeah. The clef sign. This one's a little tricky because you have two systems.
Yeah.
Or you have two.
Two counter lines.
Yeah, and they're both in treble clefs, so
Right.
that can be a little something to watch out for, because if you started on piano like I did as a young kid, you obviously read the bass on the bottom and then the treble on the top, so you have to kind of question your assumptions always. So yeah, treble clef, key signature. One thing I was talking to an elementary school student, it's like, what's the key signature? She said, there isn't one. Yes, there is one. If it doesn't
Always.
have any sharps or flats, it's still a key signature unless you know it's some sort of non-tonal tune.
Yeah. If you're playing Albert Ayler stuff where all the accidentals are written.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So in this case, we have three flats. So you want to memorize some of these things, but you know, three flats, you immediately want to think either E flat major or a C minor. So those two, you just need to that needs to be like, boom, automatic.
Yeah. And then on this tune, I've had students say, well, you know, I think it's in, you know, in this case, you know, could be in C minor, because the first chord is C minor.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Right.
First chord really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
It's how it ends. In this case, it does end on C minor, but it could just as easily end on E flat major.
Yeah. So, and sometimes it's a little unclear, and you have these rules of thumb, you know, where you say, okay, well, if it ends on a certain chord, then probably.
Right.
But where does your ear want to gravitate to? What note is it that it's going to gravitate, you know, towards? And I would tend to think it would be the C on this one.
Yeah, especially as coming out of that last bar before the ending thing is a 2-5 in C.
Yeah. Cool. So we start out on the tune. We've got a C minor chord. So oftentimes I'll think about this in terms of the tonic minor. So, and we have this suggested chord symbol, and in the melody we have this B natural. So we have the minor major 7 sound. And then we're gonna have maybe kind of a minor 6. So C minor triad. It's kind of interesting is that you can also have an E flat augmented triad.
There's a lot of places to go. But like you and I were saying off camera, this is kind of a triad-based tune.
Yeah.
You know, he's just sort of moving through the triads with some cool colors like the major 7 against the minor chord.
Yeah. And check out the melody a little bit. We have. Okay, so we get that minor major 7 right in there in the melody. Okay, and then we get this B flat. Okay, so we could think C minor 7.
Right.
So a little bit less of a tonic minor, maybe, but still could be. So you could have just E flat major.
Yeah, works
Or
fine.
the C minor. Yeah.
Yeah, it's,
And then we get a little bit of a 2-5 to the 4 chord. Now, a couple other little just sort of things about this. Form-wise, the number of measures being 12. The 4 chord lands on where it typically does in a blues.
yeah.
So you might try to relate this a little bit to blues, or I might. I don't know. Do you?
I do. It really is kind of just a modified blues,
Yeah.
broadly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
And it's interesting that it goes to the 4 major. Right? So that's kind of cool. So there you could have E minor or A minor triad,
Right.
which could go over the F.
Very Spanish sounding that way, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's cool. And then the melody, we've got interesting. So we've got 3 semitones right in there, kind of encircling that. So anything over that F major 7, and we get F minor 7. What's kind of interesting there is you could go from the A minor triad to the A flat major.
Yeah.
You know, that could work. But this is going to end up being a 2-5 to the E flat. So we get 2-5 in the relative major.
Yeah, and here he's done the same thing again. He's gone to the E flat major and then E flat minor. So it's like he does,
Yeah.
you know, in the second line there where he's going from the major to the minor and a 2-5, major, minor, quicker 2-5.
Yeah, that's right.
And then that flat 9 or flat 2, almost a suspension on the second to last bar. You know, where he's getting that.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, if you played like a G on that and I played, you know, the rest of the major 7. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, kind of like a sus with a flat 9.
Yeah.
That's funny because we were just talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah, anytime I see a flat 9 with the chord itself, not an
Yeah.
extension, but the chord itself, flat 9, flat 2, same thing. I always think of it as a suspended chord
Yeah, nice.
because it just,
Yeah.
it makes sense to me that way.
Yep.
And part of it is because the 4 chord of whatever key you're in is going to be the third of a flat 9. Right? So there is this cool little motion
Yeah.
that you've got there where you can have,
Yeah.
and it's, for a bass player, that makes sense.
Yeah.
For everybody else, probably not.
Well, hopefully we'll have some bass player folks joining if we don't have them already. But chances are very good you're going to work with a bass player. Right?
Yeah.
You guys are the most in demand and most needed and wanted.
Yeah, a bass player that can read generally works.
Yeah. Nice. So it's good to have some insights. And really, guitarists should be able to play some bass, I would say.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. A little bit of piano and some bass,
Yeah.
just to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And how these things relate.
Yeah. There are some stories of Hendrix playing some of the bass lines on some of his recordings, I think, if I remember.
I think there's pictures of him.
Are there really?
Actually,
Okay.
Well, you know, sitting there with a jazz bass, whether or not they're posed when he was at Ladyland or something. But it honestly looks like he was playing, and I wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you get it really helps. I also think horn players should take some bass lessons.
Okay.
Especially people who write for horns, horn players who write charts. Because I don't know how many times you and I have seen like a bass chart for a big band, and everything's up here. Everything's written up here, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, why? And because they're thinking, well, it sounds an octave lower than it is. So instead of I'm thinking I want it here, no, what they want is here.
Yeah.
But they're confusing it. So, yeah, if you're writing music at all, take a bass lesson.
Yeah.
Just one.
Yeah.
To understand how this stuff were written versus reality.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a really bright piano student in the college where I was going, and he had like perfect pitch and all this stuff. It's pretty cool, but really, really excellent player too. And so he was writing some things, and so we were playing him, and he comes over to me and it's like, so real polite. Yeah, he's like, so why are you playing that an octave lower than where I wrote it? And so I said, that's how guitar music is written. You know, and actually basses as well, right? On bass clef.
Bass clef, yeah, the note sounds an octave lower than written.
Right.
Because otherwise everything would be below the staff.
Yeah.
I always feel bad for tuba players.
Yeah.
Everything is below the staff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an octave down, so that, you know, if you're thinking that, but you write that, I'm going to play that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I told him that, you know, it's like, he'll remember that for the rest of his life,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, now he knows, you know,
Yeah.
that's how we read on guitar. Like middle C is here on a piano,
Right.
But when we see that middle C on bass, we play this.
Yeah.
So it's just a range thing, and that's all those transposition things have to do with the ranges of the instrument and how they can get the most notes on those 5 lines and
Right.
4 spaces.
Yeah, other than, you know, some guys experimented with like 8-line staves
Yeah,
and things.
yeah,
I tried reading one of those once.
yeah. I think
wanted
it's
to
hard
scream.
enough with a 5.
I mean, if you started that way, great. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's like reading. I actually like medieval and pre-Baroque, like Violon Consort and da Gambas. I love the Viol da Gamba.
Yeah.
And they would write color notes.
Yeah.
So there's just little notations. They'll be like this, and then they'll put something in German or something, and then a note with a color, and that's it. And you go, what do I do with that? And you hear somebody explain it, and it's like, oh no, they just gave you 32 measures, but you're on your own.
Yeah. The history of music notation is really interesting.
Yeah.
It went through a lot of stages. You know, it kind of reached an equilibrium, I think, with the 5, but it started out maybe with just 1. And
Yeah,
then
it was
grew
sort of
from there.
relative up and down
Yeah,
to
it was
that
all just,
one note.
yeah. And then it kind of went over 5, and then kind of went back. Yeah, so.
Yeah, and if bass players, but anybody, have a look at a book. There's a number of books about figured bass, especially by Bach.
Yeah.
That'll make your eyes water. 'Cause I actually worked through that just to figure out what I was hearing organists
Yeah.
do. And yeah, it'll be like one note and then some little symbols and a notation.
Yeah.
And it basically means from here to here, go for it. You know, you're on your own.
Yeah.
And there might be a couple, they will actually sort of write in rhythmic hits.
Yep.
It's like as you're cruising along, make sure you hit this. But everything between there is up to you.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the rest of the part is, you know, insanity. They're very carefully notated, but the bass players are, you know,
Yeah.
go for it.
Yeah. That's awesome. So just looking at the F, and like you said, having the to go to the 2 minor, if folks are looking for a good quick way to work through improvising on some of these changes, you could take some of the key signatures and work kind of in this direction. So you can say key of 1 flat, key of 3 flats, and then the key of 5 flats, so that you can maybe manage just some of the key signatures. Not that you'd have to play those exact things, but
Right.
but once it goes to the 2, the key of 3 flats is gonna really suit it. So, and then you can kind of hang on there, and then from there, once it goes minor, then key of 5 flats
Right.
from there,
Right.
and
So,
then you're back to key of 3 flats. So it kind of goes a whole step down, and then it kind of goes back a whole step up, but you're in the relative minor.
right.
So key signature wise.
So here is the one place where modes actually make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and trying to convey how one might think about modes is a tough thing.
It is. You know, I have a real issue with modes.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, study it, learn it, play through all of it, get it in your head, and then never think about it again.
Yeah, then forget it. Yeah.
'Cause, yeah. It's
So
just-
I like to talk about chord scales,
yeah.
which is basically the same thing.
I think, yeah, but it doesn't sound as painful.
Yeah.
Modes has this sort of aura around it of must know modes.
Yeah.
And, you know, being able to, know the difference between Lydian and Phrygian. Still, nobody cares. It's while you're playing, does it make sense?
Yeah.
Use it. So understanding, chord scales to me
Yeah.
makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I think so too. Because a lot of times folks will just kind of go through, and there's no like harmonic context. You kind of have to know really where the 5 chord is relative to whatever you're doing. I think so. If you're in the key of E flat, for example, you just kind of want to know where that B flat chord is. So if you're playing from F minor, kind of know where that one unique chord is, that dominant 7th chord.
Right. Yeah. Because
I think that's helpful. I don't know.
it is. I mean, unless you're playing, half diminished or diminished stuff, 5 is always the 5.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to think about it. Is just saying, all right, that's my anchor tone
Yeah.
for the rest of it.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of nuance to modes because there's modal music, and there's sort of chord scale kind of stuff. So you can play modal music and play something really wild for a period of time. That's an F major 7 with a sharp 5.
But so you're getting that,
Yeah, so kind of like A over F,
Right.
major over F or something. And then you could mess around with, and then that's just like a color palette for
right.
4 bars or something like that. So there's that whole context, which is sort of different in a sense than playing through changes. And
Very much.
understanding.
It's an actual compositional
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
It's serving a compositional function,
Yeah.
as opposed to a way to just describe what's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah. And then there are periods of music where you have bebop and chords are just changing like that, and you're not going to be sitting on a pretty mode or a really outside mode for a period of time. You're like making those changes.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at bebop or any of the fast
Yeah.
stuff like Stern tunes or something like that, although he can be a bit modal.
Yeah.
I'm thinking through, chords relative to the key signature.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, it's like, how do I get from here to here, incorporating all this mess? Because, I don't get to stop and be pretty, and
Yeah.
there's rhythmic considerations
Yeah.
that are, to me, actually much more important,
Yeah.
especially at my end of the sonic spectrum.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see. So, is there anything that we want to add to this tune? About it?
I don't know. Get out your books. Find Miles Davis's Solar.
Yeah.
We're looking at the Chuck Scherr version today. Which
Yeah.
seems to be accurate.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
So
Volume one. Yeah.
yeah, this is volume one. Great books. If you don't have it, you can get them as PDFs. Buy them.
Yeah,
Buy
definitely
it.
buy
Don't
them.
bootleg it. Buy it.
Yeah.
Because they do actually pay rights back to the composers.
Yep. Yep.
Not, it's not a lot, but mechanical rights for publication do matter. So
Yeah, and visit my Amazon store and support the channel,
Oh.
and you get a very small affiliate commission on the books, which I have. I have these, I believe. I'll have to go back and check, but these listed on there, or visit your local music store. Some of them have these.
some of them have it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the big box store.
Yeah.
The one we're talking about. Find a mom and pop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Find your local music store and see them.
Yeah, yeah. So many of those are kind of going, getting bought out. There's one in Westminster that I really enjoyed for a long time.
Oh, I know. That was
Yeah,
yeah.
not naming names, but
the company that bought them kind of is creeping out.
not my favorite.
Me neither.
Yeah, but we'll just leave it. Maybe just
Yeah.
leave it.
We'll
We'll keep
just-
it on the positive.
Yeah, yeah. Find your local mom and pop store, little small independent stores, or some places there's a small chain, maybe 2 or 3 stores.
Yeah,
Go to them.
Yeah.
See them. They appreciate it. You get better service. They'll usually price match. Mm-hmm. So you can say, "Hey, Amazon's got this," and they'll do. Yeah, okay, fine.
and I'll give an exception maybe to the rule. Music Go Round is a national chain.
But they are franchises.
Are they franchises?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why they're so cool, and I like them.
Yeah. Yeah, they're a mile from my house. Very,
Yeah.
very dangerous.
I love that spot.
I do too. Yeah. No, your local music go around is a great resource. There's not a lot of them in the country.
Yeah, and they're kind of networked. They'll ship things between stores.
Yeah,
I
they can.
think.
Yeah, you can go to musicaround.com and search, and it'll search all the stores,
Yeah.
and you can have it. Yeah, just go from one store
Yeah.
to the other. Yeah, useful, great stores, great prices.
Yeah. I think they are also connected or owned by the same company as Play It Against Sports.
Yep.
Which is kind of a cool store. I'm not a
And-
big sports guy, but
And
my
Plato's
son is.
Closet, which is a clothing store.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And
Okay.
there's a kids store that there's a bunch of them.
There's a whole bunch. Okay.
They're all under the same corporate umbrella,
Yeah.
but they're all franchises.
That's cool. That's great. All right. Well, that's going to be our member video lessons and talks for today. Thanks so much for watching. And do send us a comment or a question in the down below.
Yeah, love to hear from you.
See you in the next one.
See ya.